Hi, my name is Jasmine Coates, and today with me I have Debbie Pittman from Concerned Citizens of Paratransit. Today we will be talking about issues surrounding PACE Paratransit and how they're running. And I also have Emily with me as well too. Okay, so um, the reason why PACE Paratransit has really been messing up for the last couple of months and years. When Pace took when CTA had it, Pace when CTA had it, it was running fine. Now that Pace has it, it has really been bad. So now I would like to turn it over to Debbie Pittman. Debbie.
Hello, Jasmine and Emily. Um, One thing that has been going on with PACE is that because of COVID, there is a major driver shortage. And the companies are constantly talking about they can't get drivers, they can't get drivers. And this is not just in the paratransit field, but it's really across various jobs. But with the paratransit service, it's major because they're constantly overwhelmed by the number of rides that they have and the manifest that they're supposed to follow because of this major driver shortage. I'm not really sure what PACE is doing to try to encourage the improvement of rider services, but it is definitely a major issue. One thing that PACE has done is to provide the TAP side of the program, in which they're providing 8 rides per day to the riders. And this will be the case up until somewhere close to April. And with your TAP card as a Chicago rider, you can ride up to 8 rides per day, and each ride is good for up to $30 per trip. Anything over $30, you will be responsible for. The biggest thing is that as I said, the shortage of drivers doesn't just come across in the paratransit, but it also comes across in the cab service. Chicago, and the TAP program is specific to Chicago because you can go from Chicago to a suburb, but you cannot come back to a suburb to Chicago with the PACE. You can only go from Chicago to Chicago or from Chicago to a suburb. And again, anything over $30 you're responsible for, which can be paid with a credit card. The other issue tied up in this still is tied to COVID. And this is something that the companies, Pace is providing those 8 rides per day. This is also something that is similarly going on in other states too with their paratransit service, all because of the COVID. The the other part of the shortage, as I said, goes into the cab services. The Chicago cab service used to have 5,000 or 7,000 cabs in the city of Chicago, but now because of COVID and everything that's happened, those numbers are down to like about 2,000. So Chicago has lost a large number of their cab drivers because of the COVID. So COVID has impacted us greatly. The only positive thing that I can think of that has come out of the COVID is that Pace has set up where we can now set our trips and pay for those trips through Ventra. And a lot of people don't know that. You can call and put with a credit card, set your so much on your card, which your ID card itself is a Ventura card. And that number that of your ID is associated with you. And you can load that card, say you want to put $50 on it or $60 on it, you can do that. And then when you set your trip, you can let them know when you set your trip, I want to pay for my ride with Ventra. And at that point, they don't collect anything from you in the vehicle. That's the only positive thing that I can see that has come out of this. It is going to take some major work on Pace's part to make an effort to, number one, make sure that there are enough drivers, do something to encourage the number of drivers to want to be able to drive for the paratransit service, and to find a way to maintain those drivers, because right now it is a pretty dismal situation. Many people have contacted us and told us about horror stories where they waited 2-3 hours, or when they've gotten in a vehicle, to be riding around for hours at a time. That is not supposed to be what's going on. And the unfortunate thing is, with the COVID in place, it's going to be a stressful situation until somebody takes the handle and tries to deal with it from the standpoint of what the regulations say of 90-minute rides. Well, Paces now can say, oh, well, because of COVID, we can only do what we can do. So it's a stressful situation. But we as riders must continue to contact the Pace and let them know about each ride. Make track of each ride. When you pay with your Venture, make sure that you make track of whether or not, if you've canceled your trip, because that money is supposed to be added back to your card if you cancel that ride and don't take that trip. The whole $325 is supposed to be put back on your card. So you need to keep a record of that, and you need to keep a record of each time that there's a problem with your trip, and make sure that you call and complain.
Okay, I got a question for you. I'm glad you said that. When you complain, where do these complaints go?
Well, these complaints are supposed to be going to Pace, and then they're supposed to be monitored through the Transit Administration.
Okay.
Because again, we don't know really how much monitoring is going on because of the COVID and that having thrown everything in such a tailspin. But we as riders still have to continue to make our complaints and keep track of those complaints.
Okay, because I do know that as a writer myself, I've had many a time I've set up my trip to where I've set up a trip on the 14th, which was a Saturday, and I had a 11:23 pickup. Now I called Pace. I called the Pace. I called a 1-800 number to check on my transportation trip. They tell me that nothing has been booked for me in the morning. Now, I got my afternoon trip scheduled to come back to pick me up from where I was supposed to be going to that morning. But since they never picked me up that morning, I had to wind up canceling my transportation trip going home.
So the
that
question is,
afternoon.
did you make the complaint to Pace?
I made a complaint to Pace. I pressed option 2. Then when I pressed option 2, I sent the complaint into Pace. And a lot of times they don't get back to me they don't get back to me once you send in that complaint. I've had a lot of times to when it'll take months and it'll take years. One time I had to wait, when I made a complaint, I had to wait all the way until 2000. I think it was the end of 2021. I did not get my complaint. I did not get the complaint.
So you
The
never got a
response back.
response to the complaint.
I didn't get the response back until 2022.
Wow.
Now, I want to say about myself. Yeah, me too. I have an issue about the Pepsi bus. Sometimes Pepsi bus, they pick me up late. They take me late because they had to pick up other people and then they drop them fast instead of me. And then when I try to complain, like I'm calling a number, so the person they don't answer the phone, so they just leave a message. So after I leave a message, it takes a long to respond me back. They take a long to respond me back. So
I would suggest when you make your complaint, don't leave it on that recording. Call back until you get a person.
yeah,
So
we
make
try to
sure that
call
you
them.
call.
Okay.
Make sure that you call between 8:30 and like 4:30.
Yeah, and sometimes they know how to bring me late because they want to take other people first. It's a complicated situation, but in 2016, 17, it was easy. They were taking us on time and pick us on time. Yeah, but right now, maybe because of COVID, they don't have enough drivers.
Right.
That's another
Right.
problem. They don't have enough
Exactly.
drivers. That's why
Exactly.
they pick us late. They drop us late
Exactly.
sometimes. That's why I can understand it, but
And I've also heard that, and I don't know if this is true or not. I've also heard on because a lot of times either SCR will pick me up or CDT will pick me up. So a lot of times when the transportation, whichever transportation will basically come and pick you up, whether it be CDT, SCR, or whatever, dispatch would if we don't have the fare for CDT, then we cannot ride. Is that is that true or not?
I don't think it's true. If we
Well,
don't have
see, I don't know if since they have this venture thing going where you can pay with the venture, if that is still technically the case. Because if you've paid with Ventura, then they have to figure that out, and it might be a glitch on the computer's part, because I've been in a situation where I have set a trip and they'll tell me the venture's gone through, and then the driver might say, the dispatch might say, well, no, you know, because they confirm it with the dispatcher. And they'll say, well, we don't see it. And I'll call them right on the phone and I'll say, look, I'm in the ride and I'm in such and such a vehicle. And the driver is saying the dispatcher doesn't see the venture payment. And so they're on the phone and they're saying, well, we see it, it went through. And I'm like, okay, then I'm not going to pay anything, because if I paid with venture, I'm not going to double pay. So I allowed them to let that go ahead and they go ahead and deal with my trip. The one issue that they have had is that if you're paying with cash and they say you're not paying, they won't take you if from home. But if you're out trying to get home, they have to take you because they can't leave you stranded.
Right. I understand that.
I want to say another issue about Pacey bus. Pacey bus sometimes like in case you're gonna be late. Okay, let's say you are on the way and you're about to reach. Then you change your mind and tell them that I want to go home because I'm already late. They tell you to pay double to go back at your house so that they can drop you off at your house. They
Yeah.
pay you double.
Yeah.
That's
tell
so
you-
weird. And I told them that
because they're saying you've only paid for that one trip.
yeah, but
And
okay.
and so in order to do that, for them to take you back home, now they're considering it a second trip. I
But,
agree
okay.
that is unfair when they're the ones that have made you late.
Yeah, it's
So
fair.
really, they should not
Judge
be able
me.
to get that second fare when they are the cause of the problem.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's a whole nother issue that we would have to deal with
Yeah, because it
from a
happened to
totally
me.
different standpoint. And I don't think any of the regulations address that.
Yeah, it's happened to me twice. They say I told them that I'm gonna be there late. They say, "Wow, we have to pick this one." So blah blah. Then I told them when I was about to reach here, I told them to take me back home because the show was about to end. And then they said, "Okay, you have to pay double." I said, "Why? It is not my mistake to come here late. It's not my mistake."
Right. See, that's something that we would have to see
They
about
just want to
addressing in
make
the
money.
regulation, because the rider should not be penalized and have to pay a second fare when it's the carrier's problem that the incident happened in the first place.
Also, too, Debbie, just kind of real quick. Also, too, I've been into where like okay, drivers are telling me, oh well, we got more pickups, and then they ride me around, and then I don't know when. Sometimes I'm the last person to get home, or I'm the first person to get home. But then it's like okay, I'm just but I've had to where Pace has been driving me all around the city. I've had to where it's like and then when I've had that happen, it's like okay, I've gotten stuck to where I've gotten stuck at my friend's house, and I did not get picked up until 11, and I did not get home until the very next day,
Wow.
which was I didn't get home till the very next day, which was like 12 midnight.
Well, definitely, again, make sure that you make your complaint, talk to a person, make sure you get the person's name when you make the complaint, and keep track of it. With so much uncertainty with the COVID, until that kind of gets under control, they're going to use that as a reasoning for not attempting to make any improvements.
Okay. And then
Which they do have a legitimate concern because of the shortage of drivers.
but then when you also tell them to when you tell drivers, or when you tell the call taker to have drivers make contact, some of these drivers, they sit in the vehicle and they don't necessarily want to get out of the vehicle. I've had drivers to where drivers do not want to get out the vehicle and come and make contact. Not even when you ask them to make, when you tell the call taker to have the driver make contact, they don't want to. It seems like that they don't want to make contact.
Yeah, even some of them, they know how to leave.
Yeah, they
Without
just
calling you.
without
checking
calling
on
you, without getting out to
And
ring
then
your
they
doorbell.
say we arrived there when she was not there, something like that. I say wow. And then
Yeah,
they say okay, we're gonna send you another ride. You can wait another hour or 2 hours whatever.
yeah, and then I've had to where Pace has told me that it's gonna be, if you want another trip, it's gonna be 2 hours
Oh, 1 hour.
or an hour for your next transportation trip to come.
Yeah, sometimes not our mistakes, it's their mistakes. They just want to make money for nothing. And then
And when that happens, it's just like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. And I keep trying to, I keep taking Pace because that's the way that I want to go. But I see now that I see now that I'm going to have to, one way or another, switch over to the cab service to see how that's going.
another issue about the basic bus, I think it's very hard for them to find drivers. That's why they have few. That's why they have few drivers. Yeah, maybe because they pay them less money instead of full.
That is probably a big part of the problem, that they're not paying the drivers enough.
Yeah,
They're not paying the drivers enough, and so the companies are not
paying enough
keeping
money. Yeah.
they're not keeping the drivers, and there's a high turnover.
Yeah, that's why they started quitting. And we see a few drivers that they pick us late, drop us late.
Like I said, I've gotten picked up. I've gotten picked up from my destination at 1 a. I got picked up from my last destination at 1 a.m. in the morning, well, almost 12 midnight, and then did not get home until the very next day. So, and I also have other friends that ride the paratransit service, and Pace is just ridiculous. It really is.
It is. It is. But we have to keep making our complaints, because we the riders have to keep letting them know what's happening, so that they still have to have an obligation to provide the best transportation.
Thank you guys for participating in the show. This was a very enlightening show that we were doing. I do appreciate it, and we'll be doing it again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.